The murder case in the 2019 killing of Clark Atlanta University student Alexis Crowford, allegedly by her roommate and close friend Jordan Jones, and Jones' then-boyfriend Baron Brantley, is now roughly 3.5 years old, and continues to wind slowly through the judicial system. The latest court proceeding Friday saw Brantley make a brief appearance before a judge, with a scheduled bond hearing being postponed because his defense attorney is currently occupied by another trial. Baron Brantley is charged with murder in connection with the 2019 death of 21-year-old Alexis Crowford. Crawford's body was found in a DeKalb County park along Columbia Drive on November 8, 1 week after her family reported her missing. Days later, police charged Crawford's friend and roommate, Jordan Jones, and Brantley, who was Jones' boyfriend, with the woman's murder. In court documents, authorities say that Crowford and Jones got into a physical fight at their off-campus apartment on McDaniel Street Southwest. Police think Brantley got involved in the fight and, according to the documents, choked Crowford with his hands until she stopped breathing. A second arrest warrant accuses Jones of smothering Crowford with a black trash bag until she stopped breathing and died. Police believe afterward Jones and Brantley put Crowford's body in a plastic bin and took her to a wooded area in the park where she was found. Ms. Jones was an active part of the murder of Ms. Crowford, helped clean the apartment, and helped stuff Ms. Crowford into a large Rubbermaid bin used for storage or packing things. They put the bin in a vehicle and left her body in the bin in Exchange Park, Fulton County Deputy District Attorney Adam Abate told a judge during a hearing in 2019. After the death or murder of Ms. Crowford, Jones continued to text Ms. Crawford's phone, knowing that her and the defendant had turned the phone off, asking Ms. Crowford where she was like she was worried. Court records show Brantley is expected to head before a Fulton County judge for a bond hearing Friday. The hearing has now been postponed until later in March. In response to the news, Crawford's mother Tammy Crawford released a statement saying that granting the man bond would be a slap in the face to her family and essentially spit on Alexis Grace. When I learned that Baron was seeking a bond again, I knew we had to speak up and out because the monsters that murdered Alexis should not ever get out of jail, under any circumstances. I cannot imagine a judge finding it just or safe to grant Baron the freedom to walk around and be with his family while Alexis lies in a lonely grave, Crawford wrote in a statement. Both Jones and Brantley have pleaded not guilty to charges of murder, aggravated assault, false imprisonment, and concealing a death. Licensed clinical psychologist Dr. Sherry Blake has looked into the murder case and does not believe Jones was a true friend to Crawford. A lot of times what we see as a psychologist is what I call a love-hate relationship, Dr. Blake said. They may love the person on the surface. They may care about them on the surface, but there is a lot of resentment. There is a lot of anger. There is a lot of stuff underneath that many people never see, and I think that is what is happening in this case, she added. Jones' immediate family and friends did not want to provide comment for this story, but family friends who live in Atlanta tell CBS 46's Haley Mason that Jones' parents are completely devastated. Jones was raised by parents who were high school sweethearts, married for 30 years. Jones' father is a church deacon and also a law enforcement officer, the family friends said. This is their worst nightmare, and they had no indication their daughter could be involved in anything like this, the family friend said. So what led then 21-year-old college student to allegedly help her boyfriend Baron Brantley choke Crowford to death? Dump her body in a plastic bin and then dump it in a park? There is no clear motive, but police say after a party, days before her murder, Crowford reported that Brantley sodomized her inside her apartment while she was intoxicated and unconscious. She was accusing Mr. Brantley of sexual assault, said Atlanta Police Detective Mike Young. The incident and accusation could shed light on what may have led to Brantley and Jones' betrayal and murder. Detectives say Jones and Crowford got into a fight inside their apartment during the early morning hours of Halloween. During the fight, police say Brantley emerged from Jones' bedroom and began choking Crowford. Brantley told police that while he was choking Crowford, Jones placed a plastic bag over Crowford's head. Afterwards, the couple dumped Crowford's body in Exchange Park in Decatur. The couple told police that they went back to the apartment, went to sleep, and went to a Halloween party together that afternoon. For most of us, this is too much for us to comprehend. But for people who have no conscience, they have no sense of guilt, Blake said. They have no sense of compassion. When they do an act, it's just an event for them and they move on. And this is what we are seeing here. No sense of conscience. No sense of remorse. Dr. Blake says she believes there is an emotional disconnect in Jones and Brantley and no moral compass or empathy. She says Jones became willing to do anything to protect and defend Brantley, perhaps to help him avoid a rape charge. There is no indication of remorse that I can see, Dr. Blake said. No indication of any empathy. What it suggests to me is there is a lot of anger. There is a lot of stuff that we may not have even considered what's going on with Jordan, she continued. Were there signs along the way? What clues were overlooked that betrayal and possibly murder was on the horizon? One of Alexis' close friends wrote on Facebook, "Alexis trusted you even after I've told her for 3 years straight not to. She stuck by your side through everything you've put her through. You gave her so many red flags of why you could not be trusted." Alexis probably felt she was a close friend of Jordan's, Dr. Sherry said. She may have even viewed Jordan as a sister and trusted her. But that doesn't mean Jordan felt the same way about Alexis, obviously. For now, the hope is for healing and lessons learned as a family fights for justice. I think this case is going to be very painful, but I think it is going to be a rude lesson and an eye-opener for young college students, young females everywhere, Blake said. The murder case in the 2019 killing of Clark Atlanta University student Alexis Crowford, allegedly by her roommate and close friend Jordan Jones, and Jones' then-boyfriend Barron Brantley, is now roughly 3.5 years old, and continues to wind slowly through the judicial system. The latest court proceeding Friday saw Brantley make a brief appearance before a judge, with a scheduled bond hearing being postponed because his defense attorney is currently occupied by another trial. The hearing nonetheless touched on some pertinent developments in the case that have occurred in the last few months. Related, Alexis Crowford's family says granting accused killer bond would be slap in the face. A confession given by Brantley to investigators shortly after his arrest cannot be used by prosecutors. This is a major development. The issue was first brought before the court in May 2022. Then the case was reindicted in June last year. On January 27, Judge Belinda Edwards delivered her decision. The prosecution may not use the confession. Judge Edwards ruled, essentially, that the confession had not been freely given and that his Miranda rights were insufficiently given. The judge outlined how on the day Brantley gave his confession, there was reason to suspect he was under the influence of drugs and could not provide a knowing and intelligent waiver of his Miranda rights. Defendant was never asked whether he was under the influence or when he had last used drugs, although he informed the officers that he was a drug user, the judge wrote in her order. The order also stated Brantley's odd behavior as he spoke to detectives, including asking officers for a hug, intense chain smoking, and needing lean on a car to avoid falling down. Corroborates his testimony that he was under the influence of drugs to such an extent that he was unable to understand and appreciate his rights and the consequences of waiving those rights. And, the judge noted, detectives used language with Brantley to imply that an admission, coupled with a show of remorse, would result in a lesser punishment. An admissible confession must be made voluntarily, without being induced by the slightest hope of benefit or the remotest fear of injury, and the state has the burden of proving the voluntariness of a statement by a preponderance of the evidence, Judge Edwards wrote. Implying that a show of remorse would result in a lesser punishment constitutes a hope of benefit. According to a detective who testified at a preliminary hearing in November 2019, Brantley had admitted to choking Alexis, Ms. Crowford, and while he was choking Ms. Crowford, Jordan Jones put a plastic bag over her head. The detective further testified that Brantley told him he knew Crowford was dead because she stopped breathing after she'd been struggling to breath and she had sounds of agony. Jones has also admitted parts of her role in the killing, according to detectives. An appeal was filed by the prosecution to the Georgia Supreme Court on February 17. It so far has not appeared on the Georgia Supreme Court's docket. That appeal, further prolonging the case, served as the basis for the new motion for bond and the bond hearing that was to take place on Friday. The motion for bond was made February 27. However, Brantley's attorney filed for a continuance, a delay, of the hearing on March 8, citing her involvement in another, currently active trial. The defense attorney present with Brantley requested March 24 for the bond hearing. It's not clear when or if the Georgia Supreme Court will take up the appeal. A motion to admit hearsay evidence filed by prosecutors in July of last year outlines how prosecutors want to bring the alleged rape of Crowford by Brantley, prior to her killing, into the case as part of their theory that Defendant Jones was trying to persuade the victim to drop the allegation. When the victim refused, Defendant Brantley and Defendant Jones killed her, tried to hide her body in the woods, and then cover their tracks with lies and deception. The funeral was originally supposed to be at Hill Chapel Baptist Church in Athens, Crowford's hometown. But the service was moved to Cornerstone Church to accommodate everyone who wanted to attend. Congregants packed the church, shared their memories of Crowford, and prayed for her family. The Clark Atlanta University Choir sang gospel music. One friend fondly recalled how she and Crowford would talk about their future and their dreams, how they'd be rich and have big houses. "I'm going to live our dreams that we made together and make you proud," she said. "Because at the end of the day, Lex was my sister, and I loved her like one." Suspects confessed to the murders, police say. The suspects in Crowford's death have been identified by the Atlanta Police Department as her roommate, Jordan Jones, and Jones' boyfriend, Baron Brantley. According to police, Brantley strangled Crowford to death sometime in the early morning hours of October 31st. Crowford and Jones had gotten into a physical altercation, and Brantley got involved, according to court documents. As a result of the physical altercation, Baron Brantley choked the victim until she was deceased, according to the documents. Jones and Brantley then put Crowford in a plastic bin and left it in a DeKalb County park, the documents say, where her body was found on November 8th. Jones and Brantley confessed to the crime that day, the documents state. Days before she vanished, Crowford filed a police report that described unwanted kissing and touching from Brantley, police said. Brantley has been charged with murder along with 3 probation violations and hindering person making emergency telephone call, according to the Fulton County Jail. Jones faces a murder charge. Brantley and Jones waived their initial court appearances on Monday. Their court-appointed public defenders have not responded to CNN's requests for comment. In the past, Jones had spent holidays with Crowford's family. Hutchins, a spokesman for Crowford's family, previously told CNN in an interview. Sometimes, Crowford had called Jones her best friend. To know that someone that they welcomed into their homes played a role in Alexis' death is all the more hurtful, Hutchins said.